I want to talk to you about prayer, which is an interesting topic. And before I go into this, I would like to hear what your thoughts are of what prayer might be. And I will begin with Beth, since Sandy is right in front of me and I just rattled her cage there.
Boy, that's really kind of hard. I guess for me, it's like the beginning of a communication. I'm trying to think of my little prayers.
Well, don't
Are
rack your
you?
brain.
Well, I think most of them are like asking for blessings,
Okay.
asking for divine intervention. I think it all comes down to.
It's a very good one. Very good one. How about you, Sharon? What comes to mind with prayer?
Well, I think it's not like I'm praying. I don't feel like I'm praying to someone. Um, I think it's more like putting thought out there that asking for help for myself or others, that energy, maybe it's more like kind of a healing thing than it is even a prayer. It's, yeah, asking for help and for myself and others, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Okay. And Sandy.
Well, I think of it as connection, I guess is um I would I've heard people say it's a communion, but I don't like that word. I don't really think that's not the way I'm not saying I don't like the word, but I don't know if it's as definitive. I like connection to your source, connection to your energy. Um, um, and I liked what Beth said, and now it went out of my head. But at the end of what she said, that really was great. But I can't remember what it was now because
Divine intervention, I
yeah,
believe,
that
is what
that was
you
it.
said.
I liked that. I like that because it's open-ended and it just embraces everything. It just I just like that. It's complete but open. So that's kind of my feelings about it.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. And I never put much value, much stock, or I never saw any value in the whole concept of prayer as it is presented today. I never saw the benefits or the purpose of praying for a miracle or praying for others or praying to help your side beat down the other side. I never saw value in that. To me, it was hypocritical. I mean, who in their right mind prays for defeat of another? It, it just, so that's my input with that. And the interesting thing is that, when we read these books on spirituality or esotericism or something like that, they always talk about prayer. Always. In fact, I'm, Nurho Daman the Zohar is something that I'm working my way through. I read a little bit each week. And, just looking at the chapters, it's got all kinds of chapters to it. And I'm kind of wheedling my way through. So I came across this particular phrase here, and he wrote that the supreme will, meaning God or the divine, resides and acts through pure thought. It follows that by prayer manifests a union with the divine will and attracts it to himself. So to me, this just doesn't fit with how prayer is defined or how prayer is taught. Prayer, it attracts the supreme will. I question that. So guess what I did? What was that, Beth?
You looked it up. You looked up for interpretation of those words.
Yes, the Hebrew interpretation. Of course, I made another discovery, which I'll share in a little bit, but the Hebrew and the Greek interpretation, because both the Old Testament and the New Testament utilize the word prayer. And so I'm looking for a truer meaning of prayer, since this is the vehicle, so to speak. And I was given that in Hebrew and Greek, the word prayer carries deeper nuances than the modern notion of simply asking God for help. Well, that got my attention. Deeper nuances. And that it emphasizes alignment, surrender, and spiritual exchange rather than personal petition. Surrender. Wow, prayer surrenders. And here we are praying to be, well, to be something else. Praying to well, for our flaws to be overlooked and to make us perfect. Praying for shortcuts. So what are your thoughts with that whole idea, emphasizing alignment, surrender, and spiritual exchange? And well, Sandy and Sharon are both writing, so I guess that leaves you, Beth.
I like it. Again, I'm only going to relate to my personal experience, and a lot of what I do is ask. I never thought of it in these words, but it is asking for alignment. I do ask for personal exchanges, because I will ask, help me to hear you better, see you better, understand you better, and accept you better.
How about you, Sandy?
I like the alignment and the spiritual exchange. I would like some clarification on the surrender part, because I would, I don't know if it just means surrender your time to, to do this, or surrender your conceived notions, or what exactly does, what exactly are they referring to?
You're thinking surrender as giving up, which is the term most of us go to right away. Surrender, give up.
Yeah.
However, Surrender does not mean to give up. When you surrender to someone else, you're not giving up, you are accepting.
Okay.
So if you consider it like this, emphasizing alignment, acceptance, and spiritual exchange,
Okay.
then it may make more sense. See, that's the thing with our culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have so many words for one idea,
Mm-hmm.
and because we insist on being different from everybody else, we use different words instead of just coming out and using the one word that fully explains it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in contemporary religious teaching, surrender is not implied to mean accept.
No.
Surrender is implied to mean give up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Surrender yourself to God. And they tell us to give up everything that we are doing for God. And that is not what's implied in any of the teachings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's accept God. Accept the gift of God. Accept the teachings of Jesus. Accept, not give up.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we move down our paths, we have to learn a new language, because the language that we are familiar with
Yeah.
is woefully inadequate,
Mm-hmm.
especially since I've learned to use this co-pilot, this AI, and the advantage of this is this AI scans the entire internet and compiles information. And the interesting thing is the questions typically, specifically those that are of a spiritual or philosophical nature, it takes a good 30 to 45 seconds, maybe even a minute, to get a response. And there have been times where I thought the thing just jammed up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken time to compile that. Now, when I asked, I'm big on eliminating waste. So I asked, okay, what can I do about dryer sheets? Are dryer sheets biodegradable? No, they're not. Okay, what can I do as far as a DIY solution? And it brings up a list of things that I can do. And the response was very quick. Now, when I asked the question such as, what are the nuances of the term prayer in Hebrew and Greek? Well, I had enough time to get up and stretch and make myself comfortable again before I got a response.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to unlearn everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this in a variety of formats: the ritual of death and rebirth, letting go, giving up. I think, as Beth said, release something and give up something in order to receive something. We have to learn that language, and that language is not compatible with what we've been taught. What are your thoughts, Sharon?
Well, what we just talked about, what you were saying, I think you're right about the language, because just from these words, it's not doing it for me. I need to look need to look for something else. And maybe it's a much deeper explanation than this is very maybe pretty superficial. I don't know. I like the alignment. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. It's such a personal thing that it's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of hard to understand because where I come from to approach it is absolutely different from all of the rest of us. And I don't know. I kind of, I don't know. I kind of go into it maybe with I don't know how to put it, but if I'm not feeling well, or if I'm feeling depressed, or I go into it from that kind of place, I don't know what it's like to just go into it from, just happy days, just go into that kind of a mode from that thinking, because I think I tend to do it more from the other side. I tend to do it more from a place where I'm feeling bad, or I'm feeling guilty, or I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling, angry, which is, none of the reasons to really go into. I don't know if you're asking for help, if you're asking for help for those things, which are all very valid asks, very valid things to ask for help with. The word fair weather friend comes up in my head when I think about that, because if you're, when you don't ask for help when everything's going great, you only ask for help when things are bad. And generally, this is an incredibly general statement, but the person who asks or who thanks on the days when life is good, and thanks in a prayer, or thanks in that interaction, that spiritual exchange, is a person that I believe, is definitely connected to their source. Yeah. And I can't say I'm always, I'm probably, more on the other side of it than on the thanking side of it, which maybe explains where my head is at a lot of the time. And I need to work on that. I definitely need to work on that. I mean, people like, I just said, I think you have to be disciplined. And I'm probably not so disciplined, but to start your day, I mean, people who start their day every day with that connection, which is, I think, a great way to live. I mean, call it prayer. Maybe it's more like meditation, or maybe it's just connecting to your source. But to me, it's kind of like prayer, because it is a connection. Yeah, probably went off on a tangent here, but anyway.
No, you didn't. And you're beating yourself up when you shouldn't be, because you are in the right place. When is the time to ask for alignment? When you're depressed, when you're
Right.
angry, when
Sure.
you're having those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is the time for alignment. When you are out of alignment, who needs to be aligned when they're already in alignment?
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, you are on the right side of the equation, so to speak.
Okay. Okay.
Because the whole thing is that if you look at God, and sometimes it's easier to use that term, God, but when you consider the divine, the divine is moved to assist you when you need it. The divine is not moved to assist you when you're happy-go-lucky and everything, because you're with it. You're in that vibration. You're there where you're supposed to be. And the divine is already responding to you. But when you are depressed, when you are angry, that's when you need that connection, because you're listening to your emotions, and your emotions are telling you, hey, we're out of alignment here. Get me back where I'm supposed to be.
Mhm.
That is when it is needed the most. And we will get to that in a moment. So this is what I put together. In contemporary vernacular, prayer is simply a means of seeking forgiveness, reward, or some form of intercession. Now, I heard throughout my life, people praying to be forgiven, when the only one who can forgive a person is yourself. You're the only one who can forgive yourself. Praying for forgiveness and you're not willing to let go of it is simply a waste of energy. At least for myself, it is. Because if you're not willing to let go of it, asking to be forgiven is, it makes absolutely no sense. Reward, well, I've often heard people praying to get a job promotion, praying to get more money. Hey, I've done that. And you know what I discovered? If I'm not doing my part, I'm not getting anywhere. And intercession? Oh, yes. God is with whomever, whatever country God is with. God supports them. That's a crock. It has to be a crock, because if it's not, then it invalidates all the teachings of Christ, all the teachings in the I shouldn't say that, in the Old Testament, because there are portions in there where it really spells it out, which, is gray areas and everything. So, but here we go. In the Hebrew meaning, it implies self-reflection and evaluation. Wow. Do you know what that is? In some book I've read, I think it was Sojo Rinpoche's The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, meditation is self-exploration. Prayer. Meditation is prayer. It's not asking to grant me this, grant me that. Forgive me for doing this, but it was oh so good. I mean,
Yeah.
and it is through this self-reflection, through prayer, this aspect of prayer, this definition of prayer, this approach to prayer. It is through this self-reflection that we observe what we have done. And through those observations, we discover opportunities to fulfill the commandment of love thy neighbor, which is a commandment of God, which is a commandment of Christ, to love thy neighbor. And in this instance, love is to support them, assist them, give them aid. And we discover opportunities to nurture, to support, this is a bizarre concept here, to embrace those in need. And when things like that are come across as bizarre concepts, you know somebody's in trouble somewhere.
Mhm.
And we may discover opportunities to correct any wrongs that we have committed, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Meaning that prayer is an invitation to become better or more than what we have become. Sandy, I'm going to hit you again because it looks like Sharon's still writing. What are your thoughts about all of that? How does that sit with you?
Well, it sits well with me because I think it's such a more in tuned um, analysis of prayer. I hear the word prayer and it doesn't necessarily do anything for me because I guess I'm looking at the way I was raised with that word, that it means that meant something totally different than this. So this is is much more encouraging and truthful, I think. And it and positive because, you know, I think of prayer when I think of it. It brought up something I was remembering, and I won't digress. But Sharon and I had a little friend across the street when we were growing up. She's the same age, and they were very Catholic. And we used to go, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years old. We'd go with her on Saturday so she could do her confession. Okay. And we'd sit in the back. Sharon, do you remember this with Elena?
I remember her, but I don't remember doing
We'd
it.
go and you'd have to wear the little chapel veil. I mean,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my God. And we would question her. And I when you were talking about this, it just brought up the memory because I don't think we could have been more than 6 or 7 years old, and she was telling us how people cannot pray to God because they're not worthy, and they have to go to the priest, and then the priest prays for them. And we didn't like that. Sharon, I don't think we were nasty, but we were like, well, why? Why can't we just pray, And I mean, listen, she was a sweet child. I mean, a wonderful adult. I don't keep in touch with her, but I know about her family and anyway, but it just was so funny because but that little seed, even back then, okay, put a spin on prayer that I wasn't comfortable with. And I don't think Sharon was either. We were like, wait, I
Probably
don't
not.
want to go and tell some man that I don't know who I'm supposed to look at as literally as God. And then, and then tell him things, and then he's supposed to forgive me, out of the goodness of his heart and say, do 5 Hail Marys and 3 whatever, the Lord, I don't know. Anyway, it just never sat right. So here I am at my age. I'm That's still back in the back of your mind, and I mean it's not in a bad way. It's just a memory, but as I grew up and I was, and more at this stage of life, I have always figured that prayer was much closer to meditation than, asking to be forgiven every 5 minutes. That was kind of, that it was more of a connection, like we said, an alignment. I like alignment even better because I think that's really more of a accurate description. And it opens it up because that way of thinking was so defined and so narrow and so negative, really, very negative. So it just puts an entirely different light and a more of I don't know, beautiful isn't maybe the right word, but puts it in a much lovelier, higher place. Let me put it that way.
Good, good.
Um, pretty, pretty similar. self-reflection, alignment. What am I thinking? That's a test. No, it makes it more like interactive. Is that what I'm looking for?
Exchange.
It's mutual.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that makes it communal. Makes it part of a group. Even if there's only one here in physical form. It like it makes it oh, it makes it socialism. That's not the word I'm looking for. I hate it when I'm trying to find the concept
But
and
social
it is social. It's a
is the word that you're looking for.
yeah, it's social, it's community. You know, it makes it a
Communion.
village.
Joining, there's all sorts of words there.
Yeah.
There's
Makes
all
you
sorts
part of
words
something
there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that is bigger than what you can describe.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Precisely. So I want to leave you with a little something, and something that I discovered, and something prompted me to look this up. But when Jesus walked, when Jesus taught, there were three languages that we can comfortably rely on, that Jesus knew. Jesus knew how to speak Greek, because some of the places that he traveled to would have required him to speak Greek. Jesus knew how to speak Hebrew, and Hebrew was like Latin, the official religious language. And then the Aramaic was the common tongue. That was the common tongue. So I'm going to leave you with this. O source of all who dwells in the eternal realms, may your name be held holy. Let your kingdom unfold within us. Let your desire be done. As in the unseen realms, so also in the world of form. Give us this day the bread of life, and untangle the cords of our errors as we release the strands we hold of others' faults. Do not let us be lost in forgetfulness, but guide us through the fires of transformation. For you are the ground of the kingdom, the power and the glory forever and always. Amen.
I like that.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Lord's Prayer.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
The Lord's Prayer. And perhaps at another time we can go through this, because this entire prayer, as read here, is of a much more accepting and inviting nature than the one we are familiar with.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
So, any last thoughts or comments?
Could you put that in an email and we can print it off?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
I
I'd like
can
to
do
have a
that.
copy of it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
And I know this was something that Reverend Thomas taught on ages ago,
Mhm.
but I don't think he went through it to explain it. And that's something we can do at a later time, is we can work through this and come up with these possible nuances and meanings that could be hidden within this.
Yeah.
So, anyone else? I want to thank you for your participation in this, your thoughts, your words. They are valuable. And I want to thank you for allowing me to present it to you.